Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Zambezi Belle Podcast. Today, we have an amazing guest, Karen Nhari, and she has agreed to come back on the podcast and do another episode with us for all those that are our diehard followers from when we did this during the pandemic. So, Karen, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be back. I'm excited that you're podcasting again because I'm a big fan. But thank you for the warm welcome.
Yay. All right, we start with a word of prayer. Let's pray. Our kind and gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for this amazing day that you gave us. Thank you for giving us the breath of life. Thank you, Lord, for providing for us in all areas of our lives. Please help us as we are going to be having this conversation. Please help this conversation to reach the people that you want it to reach, and for every single person that listens to this conversation to come away from this changed in some way, and help us as we are growing and learning together. In everything that we do, help us to give glory to you. We love you. We praise you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Well, let's dig in. Will you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did Karen Nhari get to be where you are now?
Okay, well, Karen is, I don't know, I struggle with the telling about myself when it's not work settings because it's easier. But if I had to describe myself, I'll just say I'm someone who loves the Lord, loves people. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I am someone's sister, actually two people's sisters. And then I'm just someone who really, really enjoys family and food and friends, if I had to do a high level summary. But the second part of your question of how did I get to where I am today, I think God really, at the end of the day, to be honest, I didn't think I would be who I am today. Not that I thought I'd be worse off, but like the script is really not mine. And I see that because sometimes you see where you've put effort and where you wanted to go with your life. And then the other parts is just God steering you, or you want to do this and then it doesn't work out and you end up in a different path. So really in terms of what I became, it's God. I'm a chartered accountant by profession, but really work in internal audit. I work for a Fortune 100 company. My job feels like a consultant. I move around different parts of the business, telling them ideas on how they can make it better. My role is really to try and find issues in processes within the business to try and make them better. It's a fun job. I get to work with different leaders, different areas. Sometimes within our company, we're in retail, so in the stores. So it's a very fulfilling job. And I think over the years, I've learned to find purpose in what I do. And most importantly, realize that in everything I do, the ministry is me. And what I do every single day is how I impact and touch other people's lives. And more importantly, portray the love of Christ. So it's really been a fulfilling journey of purpose, of growing, constantly challenging myself to evolve and experiencing new things as the journey goes. But I honestly am grateful to God for who I am today.
Amen. That is amazing. So, tell us a little bit about your career. You started off in Zim, you did your education in Zimbabwe, and then you came here after, and you had run some businesses in Zimbabwe. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience? Because, we should always look at our humble beginnings. There's always something to glean from there. And just the perseverance that you had then, even though you're in a different space now, it's still the same perseverance that you need to be able to do it in a different kind of job that you have.
Yeah, I can tell. Yeah, it's an interesting story. To be honest, I grew up in a very small town. It was a sugar growing town with a company. Everyone who lived in that town basically worked for the company in one way, or their parents, or they were a farmer. So it was an interesting, different world. I tell people it's a world of its own. It was in the low veld of Zimbabwe. My town was called Triangle. There are other towns there, Chirezi, and so on. So grew up in a little bubble of sorts, if you want to call it that. And that's where I went to school, spent my whole life. My parents are still there. Then eventually, over time, I will say, if you ask someone from my community, I am very privileged, if you want to call it that. You had the haves, the have-nots, and then somewhere in the middle. I started somewhere in the middle, saw my parents' career evolve. Honestly, really just a testament of God. If I think of where like my father started, saw them evolve, saw them educating themselves, and eventually they became very successful in their jobs. So we had more privileges than most people that I grew up around in my community. So in that spirit, I had the privilege of going to very good schools, part of it really supported by the company that my parents worked for,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually went to university in South Africa, spent about 4 or 5 years there, came back to Zimbabwe, and then the reality hits. And I think, Praise, you know this. We're all from Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is a country like most African countries with its own challenges. And the biggest challenge is employment opportunities.
Yes.
So when I got back, like with everyone else, there were no jobs. There were no jobs whatsoever. It was hard to get a job. A lot of it depended on connections or being able to even find the opportunities because there are very few. So that inspired me to start my own business. At the time, I remember I had an uncle, my mom's brother, who wanted me back in South Africa, and he was like, "Just come work for me." And I don't know, something in me just felt like I want to try, do something. This is the time. Like I'll never get another chance to just try out a business. So I went to my father, and at the time he initially he I think he just thought this was gonna just be a little hobby and she'll do it for a few weeks and quit. But in the spirit of keeping me busy, they agreed. Um, they were like, okay, we'll support you. But my dad is an accountant, so I was given a set amount of money. I think he gave me $300 for my operating capital, like to get
Wow.
started. And then he said he'd pay for my structure, which was like how you have a food truck here, but
Mm-hmm.
it didn't have wheels, and managed to put me in touch with the person who I needed to get in touch with, which was a local postmaster, the guy in charge of the post office. And that's where I set up my little shop. It was maybe a kilometer away from the bus terminus where everyone got their buses. So it was a busy spot, a good spot to be in. But I was, compared to the bus terminus where you had vendors, I was the privileged one with a fancy, if you want to call it fancy. If you're from America, if you saw it, you're just like, okay, whatever. But it was fancy. It was fancy to those of us who grew up in Zimbabwe. And it was pretty fun. I spent about a year doing that. And during that year, I also then got an opportunity through some other man in the area who had seen me, who was like, hey, there's Econet in Zimbabwe that was offering basically the opportunity to start like your own Econet booth. So it works like Cash App for those who don't know, but you can
Mm.
cash out your money. So as a vendor, if you own one of those, you get a percentage or commission from every time someone comes in and puts in money or takes out money. And then they also provided you like cell phones or other inventory that's really like telecoms related that you can sell. So it was pretty fun. I had the opportunity then. My mother was working at a hospital, and I
Mm-hmm.
asked her, I was like, do they have this at the hospital? And she mentioned no one had it. So went through the channels in our small community to get approval to be able to set up at the local hospital. So I set that up. Similar structure, but that one was really provided by Econet. Like they were amazing. They gave you everything you needed to basically get started. And at the time, my little business was doing a little bit well. I think I needed like $300 again to set up my my business. For that one, it was small money, but believe it or not, it actually worked. And
Wow.
looking back, that year I knew full well I was enjoying it, but I knew I wanted to do more. And my parents, obviously, yes, they were able to support initially, but there's no way they could have supported like the growth if I wanted to become a restaurant or if
Yeah.
I wanted to grow into a proper shop. So I was still applying for opportunities to get a job. Business was hard. So I was like, this is actually really hard work. You're always working. There was never times when you weren't working. You were managing employees. Sometimes they'll decide, you know what? This week we made money, and they'll come to you and be like, ma'am, ndakubetserwa mari. Basically, I need more money or else I quit.
Oh
And they'll
my
tell you the
God.
morning off, the morning when you're starting your shift. They'll be
Oh,
like, I was thinking I got another opportunity to go to South Africa or something, so I need more money. And then you're like, okay, I'll give it to you because you
oh.
literally have no choice because you need to keep your business running.
What
But yeah,
did
I
you
learned a
guys,
lot about.
what was your specialty?
So we made sadza,
Uh-huh.
obviously, because in Zimbabwe you can't you can't operate anything food related without sadza. So we made sadza. That was the thing that maybe pulled frequent customers. Then we also had like burgers and chips and a few other like easy dry snacks that you could buy and drinks and a small little bench seating set up, and then really like the area was nice. It was opposite a park, so a lot of people would just come grab their food, go to the park. We were very supported by the people who worked in the area, like in the same vicinity. We were
Mm-hmm.
renting shops there. I know like two of them were Adventists, and I think they were like my biggest supporters from church because they basically when I opened up, they got me all the customers in the area, and that the
Oh,
rest was it was easy.
oh, that's awesome.
So I started working for a company in the Big Four of public accounting firm. They do a lot of consulting. So knew I always wanted to go back to work. So that's when I got an opportunity to I interviewed, and they did like chartered accountancy, what they call articles of clerkship, where you can train and work to become a chartered accountant. So started working for them. But coincidentally, I'd met my husband before through church, but we eventually started dating, and he
So he was
basically
already in
got
the States?
he actually transferred the year that I started working for the firm. He got transferred to the US, the States. So we continued dating, and eventually it led one thing led to another, and he asked me to marry him. And then that was a whole nother story about how I got married, but
Oh,
eventually
baby, we're gonna
got
get into
married.
all that.
Yeah, we can get into all that, but because of him, eventually when he proposed and I'd finished my program, I then joined him in the US. So
Well,
it
since
was it
we're
was
already
exciting.
here, how did that happen?
So I tell people it's interesting because my husband and I never really like dated until we he said, "Will you marry me?" That
Yeah.
was when I would say we really like intentionally dated. All along, like even I was like, I hope this guy doesn't ask me out unless he's serious. Like I don't want to be tied down to someone who's halfway across the world who's not serious. Partially being I'd known him for a long time. Like I'd known him since I was 18 and I was probably in my mid 20s at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So but we were talking, we liked each other. When he went to the States, I was like, you know what? I really like this guy. And I was like, but I told him, I was like, I don't think you're gonna come back. And he was like, no, I'm gonna come back and we're gonna make this work. And I think 2, 3 months into it, he decided this was hard. And I think I also realized, you know what? I was busy. Honestly, my life was busier then than it is now professionally. I was traveling most of the time and I was studying as well, and it's a very hectic program. So at the time when he was like, I was like, you're not really, looks like you're not into it. I don't want to give you pressure. So let's call it quits. And we went our separate ways very briefly. I will say probably it lasted like 3, 4 months. And then he came back and now he was like, you know what? I think I want this to be very serious. When I come back, I want to meet your parents. So when he came back and he met my parents, I would say that's when we really like started dating. There was never, will you be my girlfriend in any part until then, of which he just went straight to, will you be my wife? So he asked me to marry him. I said yes. I think it took a year between our engagement and when we did the Rora Lobola ceremony. And then
Yeah.
another year from the Lobola to when we actually had our wedding. So it was a long, and I tell people that's when we actually dated. That was when
Yeah.
it was serious. Because
When
all
you were
along it
actually
just,
engaged, because it
yeah,
was
when
like
we were
lobola.
engaged.
Right.
Yeah. So we
Well,
took a
actually,
long
lobola, you're
period.
already married
Yeah, you're technically
traditionally.
married.
Yeah.
You are. You literally are. But I think that's when I think when he said, "Will you marry me?" I knew he was serious. That's when I truly knew. And in a way, I'd wanted that because I knew I'd seen like my older cousins who were older than me, some who weren't married, had said to me, some of us invested years in these relationships that amounted to nothing, where you're just steady dating this one person, truly exclusive, but it's years and years of wasted time. So in my dating or young days, one of the mantras I told myself was, I don't want to date someone unless they know they want to get married, because I know when the time comes, I will know if I want to get married. So I will say I never really dated anyone. I would go on dates. Like a guy would ask you out, you go on
Yeah.
dates. My life was busy as well. But in doing that, I think it helped as well because most of the people I did almost date were people who were very serious because I was very clear about no
What
dating
you
unless,
wanted.
yeah, yeah. And I tell
So he
women
was
that, young
really your
women.
first major relationship.
Not really. I'd had
No?
like one or two before that, but I would say
Okay.
major, like in terms of this was actually, I would say probably the other ones were almost marriage, but they ended pretty quickly, either just because of my work life or yeah, I think work and school
Yeah.
made it hard for any guy to want to date
Yes.
you if you're not available or you're seemingly never available because of your job.
So how does it work now? Because you travel a lot. Does his job allow him to be home more since now you're a
Yeah.
blessed mother?
Believe it or not, I don't travel a lot, but when I
No.
do, sometimes
Yeah.
it's project specific. But yes,
Okay.
he travels as well. I think the biggest thing is just partnership.
Yeah.
We really take turns. I think he's a very involved father, which helps. My father-in-law was one of those dads who was able to look after them. My mother-in-law was primarily traveling a lot, and he looked after them. So he was raised by someone who understood being a very involved and active father, which helps.
Yes.
So I know if I go away, like in this instance, for 2 weeks or a week, my daughter's fine. I try not to unless it's like a specific project,
Yeah.
but we really take turns. I think it's really just about managing and aligning schedules. So whoever gets the trip first has to make sure they put it on the work Outlook calendar so that at work I can tell I'll be like, no, I can't travel during this period because he's traveling. It's really just syncing calendars.
So how do you make time for you guys? How do you keep your marriage fresh?
I don't know. I don't know how other people do it. We need advice from the
Because
older
you
people.
are our 30 something year old, young mom, young wife. So what is it that how are you keeping things fresh? We want to know for the young 29-year-olds, 26-year-olds that are listening.
So to be honest, I think that's the hardest thing about life in the diaspora, especially if you didn't grow like I didn't grow up with my parents here. So we literally just came here as young people and we're figuring it out. Over time I'll say like now we've been able to embrace the idea of using a babysitter. She's also over 2 now. But the first few year or two was really hard because you're also not sure. You're like, this is a whole stranger, a complete stranger that I am entrusting my child to, even though we
Yeah.
do it with daycare. So we have daycare. Obviously, she goes to daycare. So during the week, we're fine from balancing our careers. But ended up, I'd say probably when she was about a year and a half, getting a babysitter. So she has someone to watch her. I would say we don't religiously do date night. We occasionally we're trying to be more intentional with it. Um, but she's also a good partner to take along on some of the dates. But if I told you there's work-life balance in my life, there isn't. I'm just learning to be present in the moment. So I try not to bring work home. And if I must work, there's no such thing as work-life balance, praise. It's literally you do what you can in the moment. I'm learning to like live in the moment. So
Yeah.
when it's time to be at work, I tell my work colleagues, like recently someone was asking me, you never really eat lunch, like take lunch break unless there's something like if I'm having a lunch break with someone, which is something I try and do more often. But generally, I'm like, when I'm at work, I want to make sure I work because when I'm at home, I want to be at home. When it's time to be home, I want to go home and make supper for my family. I want to play with my daughter. And if I must work at home, it's going to be after she's out. Like, I don't want her to see me as mom's always on her laptop. That's just the goal I've always made for myself. So honestly, I try and just show up when I'm in somewhere, I give it 100%. And I'm learning more and more. I think when I first became a mom, I didn't know what it was like just juggling. Sometimes you overcommit because you think you can get a lot of things done.
Yeah.
But I'm learning not to overcommit, to really be realistic and intentional with my time. And if I do something and if I say I'm going to do something, I just give it 100% of me in that moment.
Let's talk about motherhood. Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit
Yeah.
about your journey to becoming a mom.
So it was a very, very different journey. Honestly, I had a sense that's how I would end up becoming a mom. So started off with issues with fibroids,
Mm.
I'd say probably around 27, but I was still in Zim when it first happened, and I think it was fibroids. I went on my period for a very long time. It was probably, I think I was on 2 weeks when I was like, no, I'm going to go see the doctor. This has never
Mm.
happened to me before.
2 weeks
Went
on
to a
your period.
doctor, yeah, 2 weeks on my period. And I was like, I'm gonna go see a doctor. Went to the doctor. They just gave me something to stop the periods. They didn't like check me.
Mm.
So when I moved to the US, my husband randomly, I think that happened like 2 or 3 times, and the doctor just gave me stuff to stop my period, but didn't really check me. Moved to the US, I will say the healthcare in the US is amazing. Just because the doctor in my annual physical was literally just like doing and it's touching my just part of just touching my belly. I hadn't said anything about my periods because it didn't never happen again. But immediately she was like, "Hey, I think you have fibroids," and ended up getting my open myomectomy, which is basically when they open you up to take out the fibroids. I had about
Mm-hmm.
19 fibroids. They
Wow.
weighed close to 3 kgs. So that was when I think after that she said something to the effect of, I think you should, if you're planning to have kids, with fibroids, sometimes it's earlier. It's better to have them now rather than to wait because they'll probably come back. So
Mm.
I hadn't planned to have kids at that stage, but decided, okay, fine, we're not going to do anything to not have kids. But realized the kids weren't coming. So I was like, hey, maybe like a year in, I was like, I'm not getting pregnant. And I was talking to one of my colleagues at work, and she was now almost 40 and was exploring IVF. So she says to me, hey, just go see a fertility specialist. Don't wait. Like don't wait. You should try a fertility doctor. And then I was like to her, well, okay, I'll think about it. But I also had another friend and another cousin who was going through, they were all going through IVF and they were older than me. And they were like, Karen, don't wait. Like just go see a fertility specialist. So I tell my husband and he's like, what yeah, okay, what are the he's very good at like just being like, okay, let's just go with it. So we went, did a bunch of tests. Realized I think it was both factors on both our sides, but then also on my end it was the
Mm-hmm.
low egg, like basically low egg count, almost, if you want to call it that. That's where your AMH levels are low and effectively impacting potentially the quality of my eggs. So that's what spur us basically led us into an IVF journey. I think
Okay.
I was like 30. And I honestly didn't want, like, didn't care to,
Mm-hmm.
but because a lot was happening, COVID was happening at the time. And at some point, my husband got a job in Arkansas and we were moving to Arkansas. But the blessing in all of this is I did a few tests, got to the conclusion, we moved to Arkansas, found a fertility doctor, and he confirmed everything. Your AMH is low. Yes, we're going to have to do IVF. Then coincidentally, my husband's job effectively needed him to go work from overseas in different countries.
Mm.
So at the time, they were basically like, you can work from Zimbabwe if you want to, so that you can do your assignments. And had a friend who, because it was so expensive in the US, had
Yes.
decided to go do it in Zimbabwe. So she went, she'd done it like maybe a few months before me. And then she was like to me, I said to her, oh, I'll finish off when I come back to the US. And she's like, but then life will be busy and then you'll
Yeah.
have work and then all this stuff. And I'd actually stopped working at the time and I was transitioning to start a new job.
Mm-hmm.
So part of it was just the visa. I don't know, everything worked out. Visa delays, trying to transfer to my old new employer, us moving. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go do this in Zimbabwe. So got to Zimbabwe, found a good clinic, only one I think at the time, and the doctor was really great.
Who was
We
your
did
doctor
it in
in Zim?
Zim. His name is Dr. Mplanga. He
Okay.
runs a facility called IVF Zimbabwe. I can't rave enough about this facility just because I feel like there's not enough support for fertility in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
And what they're doing is very unique, very special. And it was an amazing experience. The nurses are amazing. He himself, you can tell it's he's very invested in the process. It's not just a job to him.
Yeah.
And I say this because my first transfer failed, and the doctor was more depressed than I was.
Oh, I love
I
that.
was I will say they transferred two eggs, and I at the time I'd been like to him, but I think he was saying the other one, the quality wasn't that great. Let's just do two. In my heart, I was like, Lord, if I end up with twins, I don't know what I would do. But yes, obviously sad. I was a little sad that it didn't work out, but I'd done a lot of research. By the time I went in on IVF, because I had friends who'd done it and I'd read a lot of books, I knew the probability of success every time is about 30%. So I
Three?
was 30, 30.
Oh, okay. 30. Okay.
Yeah. So I was very cognizant of the fact that it's more than likely not going
Yeah. Three
to
out of
catch.
10 is not a lot.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. So I was like, oh, okay, it's okay. Well, we tried it. The doctor was like, no. He was really sad. And he was like, Karen, like, at the time I'd said to him, hey, I need to go back to the US for my new job. And he was like, no, let's just try this again. Let's give it one more shot. Cause I feel like if you leave, you'll leave your egg here for a while. Let's just try it. And I was like, okay, let's do it again. So we did another transfer. And that's what resulted in me having my daughter. And she's now two going on three, almost three. So
Wow.
very exciting. And that's how I ended up being a mother. And I honestly, I tell people I think doing IVF makes me realize how blessed I am to be a mother. And I try not to take my motherhood for granted at all, just because I know it's a privilege. And I know a lot of women who've struggled with fertility and a lot who are still struggling with fertility. And it truly is a blessing. I tell people, I'm like, I would love to get pregnant for free, but it's a blessing. It's a blessing to even be able to find the resources to do it. Or even like, I know like currently my current employer and even my husband's employer, they support your fertility with fertility benefits. So it's a blessing to even have all those resources because IVF is extremely expensive.
Extremely expensive. And that's one of the things I thought about when I was pregnant at 18, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I was like, there are so many people, so many women, so many men that wish to be parents that are
Yeah.
not able to be parents. And here I am listening to all these other voices that are saying this is going to derail your whole career plans and everything. You should think about having an abortion. And I'm like, for me,
Yeah.
that was not the right choice
Yeah.
because I thought about all those things. And not just that I am pro life, but just
Yeah.
thinking there are people who really are going through these struggles to have a baby.
That's what.
And here I
Yeah.
am just gifted with this gift.
Yeah. It
you
truly
know?
is a gift. It's a gift. Honestly, I tell people I'm like, because I can't have kids, if you give me 4 or 5 kids, I would be so happy. Like but I'm also aware of like different challenges. I won't take for granted to say motherhood is easy. It is extremely, extremely hard. But I tell people, I'm like, it gets better every, you get a new challenge. Other one that was maybe more time consuming goes away. So
Yeah.
they grow, and hopefully one day they'll look after us too, which is the goal.
Yeah, I do believe motherhood is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. It is not.
Let's talk a little bit more about your busy career. So for
Yeah.
those young women that say, "Oh, I want to be a career woman," walk us in a typical day for you because like you
Yeah.
said, your job is more like a consultant. So what's a typical
Yeah.
day at work for you like?
It's never the same. I tell people, if you ask me, every day looks different.
Yeah.
So I try and typically get into the office around 8:30, 8. I'm even trying to push that up further because right now I'm just like, like I still feel like I'm not doing everything I should be doing at work in a day. But I start my day around 8. So at work, that's my goal to get in. So we get up, try to get my daughter ready. Of late, she's in this phase where she wants to wear what she wants to wear. So we've started sort of half dressing her ready for the next day. I know it's bad. My mom would right now she'd be screaming because
That's okay.
in Zimbabwe they have a bath. You dress them up. You put Vaseline everywhere. But
Yes,
we've effectively
Vaseline head
skipped.
to toe. And I still
Yeah,
do it to this day as a 43-year-old woman.
yes. But because we know how hard it is, like she's obviously tantrum phase and she has specific clothes she wants to wear, we sort of dress at least like her top part, her top for the night. She'll be ready to go. So we effectively do the whole washing your face, getting her ready, and leave the house. Drop her off. Daycare is pretty close to the house, so typically my husband drops her off, but if he's not available, I'll do the drop off. And it's a 40-minute drive to work, so off to work we go. We don't really do breakfast in my house. My
Mm.
daughter does breakfast on the go, so she might get something as she's getting ready to leave the house, and then we get back typically around 6. So I pick her up around 5:45, 5:30 on an early day. Get home, make dinner. My work day is really just first things first. I'm ashamed to say it's coffee when I get to the office.
How do you like your coffee, ma'am?
With sugar it shouldn't be, and with obviously with milk. I'm trying to move transition to like oat milk and try to do honey, which is a
I
very
blame the
weird
Brits.
combination. Yes. I do.
They
But
messed
of
us up
late
with this cream and sugar with our tea and coffee.
yeah. But of late, I can't seem to survive without my coffee. Like it was fine before. I just that 1 cup in the morning is what sets me up. I try not to take more than that, but I just need it to set me up for the day. So usually I try not to have any meetings first thing, but it always happens somehow. By 9, it's meetings after meeting. My days, a lot of it is spent in meetings after meetings. So it's refreshing when I don't have a meeting, when I come in and it's just a work day where I have a few hours to actually get my work done. So that's typically it. Sometimes we travel. So, like right now, I'm out of town. My typical morning right now is coffee on the go, get to the office, a bunch of meetings, a few other, hopefully, some time in there to work. Sometimes we do what we call walkthroughs. So, you're either spending time understanding the business process by physically watching it, or really just like in a meeting where someone is describing how they do their work or what the business does. So, it's a fun job. I will say my company is a very fun place because we have a lot of non-work activities that happen. So
Yeah.
sometimes you have like training, sometimes we have um, a big morning meeting for the entire department. Sometimes we do a lot of like women's events and empowering events or self development events or health events. So it's a pretty fun place to work because in all your meetings, there's a meeting that's really fun every day that's in there somewhere, which keeps it exciting.
I like that. So, how do you take care of yourself? Because your day is already done. It's already 6 6 p.m. You're making dinner, and then after that, it's
Yeah.
putting baby to sleep, and
Yeah.
maybe seeing your husband and saying, "Hey, you're alive. Okay, good. Let's go." So, where do you find time to take care of yourself, to work out, and all the things that are self care?
I'm guilty of not working out as frequently as I should. I would love to do every day, but realistically, with the schedule, it doesn't work. So typically, my workout days are weekends, and if I can, a day in the week, like whether it's just like a few minutes where you're on the treadmill, a few stretches here and there, that's during the week. The upside is our work has a gym. So
Hmm.
you can use the gym if you have time during your day. You can typically go in and just do a quick session. I just haven't because of my crazy schedule. Once in a while I will, but it's very, very rare. Like everyone would literally laugh out loud and be like, she found time to go to the gym because most of us don't have that time. But that's really, I think the workout part, that's how I do it. The self-care, I'm big on massages. I love spas. Like even when it comes to picking vacations, I'll always make sure there's somewhere in there where I can get a massage or go to the spa. So I'm very big on like my spa time. Believe it or not, I recharge a lot by just watching TV. I tell someone said it, an executive said it a few months ago, and I was like, "Hey, there's no shame. I love TV." So
What are you currently watching?
I'm currently watching Succession. I started that like 2 days ago. Just watching. It's been fascinating just realizing how other people on the other side run the businesses or
Yeah.
how families with businesses operate. Just but I love just watching TV. I don't do it a lot, but like if I can get in a week my 2 3 hours of TV, I feel like that recharges me just because I'm just sitting
Yeah.
and doing nothing and I don't have to think about. I feel like with motherhood really made my brain busy and then work. So a lot of my day, even if I'm walking, I'm planning, I'm scheduling, I'm putting in a meeting, I'm writing down my to-do list. Um, a lot of things going on. But my husband and I have our own little Airbnb business that we run on the side. So you're responding to messages, you're trying to fix certain things. So it's nice when you're sitting on the TV because something else is gone. Like your brain is now in something else versus you having your brain to yourself, which is good.
For someone who wants to start an Airbnb business,
Yeah.
how did you guys go about it? How did you start? How do you keep up? How do you plan to scale?
So really, honestly, starting wasn't a choice per se. Our first property that we did Airbnb with was the property that we bought for in Zimbabwe, which was supposed to be where we thought we were going to go back to Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
So when we realized we weren't going to go back, and it's just a lot easier to get access to your money, as you guys would know all of that, being Zimbabwean, but sometimes it's a lot harder to get a bank and be able to get your money. We just decided, okay, we'll put this property on Airbnb, see how it goes, and it did really well. And over here, eventually, I think in the US, what started it was really just our house. So when we moved houses, we were like, hey, let's try Airbnb instead of putting a tenant. And that's really what got us there. I'll say in terms of scaling, I would say we don't have the time to do like full on Airbnb business. If I did, I would. So we've been giving ourselves grace just to be like, hey, do it at our own pace. It's paid really well. It's been a safe business, but we're in no rush just because we both have very demanding careers. I'd say my husband's career is way more demanding than mine is. So we're gonna pace ourselves. I think we are planning to hopefully grow it, but I will say it's not as passive of a business as people would think.
Yeah.
So being aware of that if you're not careful on a day, you could just be firefighting that. We're trying to take it slow and maybe focus more on like maybe even like your longer term rentals versus short term rentals.
Mm. So, how difficult is it to run an Airbnb? Like, are most people kind of
Yeah.
crazy, or most people are actually responsible? Because I'm curious,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on people who rent these Airbnbs? Because I think I'm a good renter, but
Yeah. I would say, I mean, I would say we more often than not, we've gotten good people visiting. Like most of the people who stay at our Airbnbs are great people. Once in a while, you'll get, yeah, the crazy people or unreasonable people.
yeah,
And I think the one thing in my business, I'm always like, I don't want money from someone who's unhappy. So I'm always big on like, hey, I'll give you a refund. Go look for somewhere else to stay. I'm strict though. Like I'm not gonna say stay at my house for free. I'm literally just
yeah,
gonna be like, here's your money. Go look for the place that you want to stay. And honestly, I feel like as long as you're giving a good service and your property is good and the people are getting the value that they want and it's comfortable, more often it's rare I've ever had anyone leave. More often than not, they're like, actually it's not a big deal. We've decided to stay. So that's how you usually respond to the crazy people. Or sometimes, yes, you do have issues because I will say, like for the one in Zimbabwe, we're not there, so we don't run it there. It's really the feedback we get from our guests is how we know if something is terribly wrong. But most of the times, it's people who are visiting their family and they appreciate the convenience and they're very open to say, "Hey, Karen, we had a great time. You might want to look at this, this, and this that needs to be fixed." And
mm,
I've appreciated it even in here because that's how we know what's wrong
yeah,
because your guests are really your eyes and your ears. But I would say for the most part, for every like one crazy guest you get, you have nine more that are amazing. Some of them are like just I mean, it makes you realize, okay, I really enjoy because I will say for homes that we have on Airbnb, those are homes that we've lived at. So I tell people I'm also emotionally invested in the property. It's not just a house to me.
yeah. So, how have you learned to take criticism? Because when you're running a business, you have to be open to criticism
Yeah.
and deciphering what is constructive and what is just people just coming on and
Yeah.
saying whatever they want to say. It's like, I do these prayers every day. It's like just a short prayer. And one person commented on my prayer and said, um, because I start off with Dear Jesus, because it's a
Yeah.
prayer that I want even a young child to be able to listen to and say,
Same.
okay, I can
Yeah.
pray like this. And one person commented and said, Jesus did not create you, only God the Father created you. And I just responded and I said, thank you for your comment.
Yeah.
And I wanted to
Literally.
add the bless your heart, the Southern way,
Like a true Southern person. Yeah.
since I'm a Southern Belle,
Yeah. I will say honestly, I think my job has helped me when it comes to customer service. I get like my part of my job is just constantly either I'm getting feedback from my boss, no one likes being audited, or I'm getting
Mm-mm.
feedback from whoever I'm looking at, or criticism from the people who I'm supposed to be having conversations with. So it's improved my customer service, I think, because I deal with it every day. So I apologize sometimes even when I'm not wrong. If I know what I'm trying to achieve. So even if I'm not wrong, sometimes I'm like, I apologize. And I'm very cognizant that people have bad days and good days. And um I think my job has helped. And I'll say with Airbnb, the first maybe 3, 4 reviews, you sort of take things personally. But the longer you stay in it, the less you become like upset. Like you won't even be upset. It's really just this is feedback.
Yeah.
Hopefully, and if it's good constructive feedback, it'll help you get better, which is how I try and look at it. And feedback is a gift. Sometimes we in life we get gifts that we don't like, sometimes we get
Yes.
gifts that we like. So you choose what to do with the gift that you've been given, and hopefully most people are reasonable. Honestly, I think yeah, sometimes yeah, someone might tell you like I know like in Zimbabwe, our property is off the grid. It's designed to be able to operate fully off solar. So someone will be like, "Hey, I would love an oven." And I'm like, yeah, I would love to give you an oven, but, and honestly, and I'm like, yeah, but right now we're fully operating on solar or like the power situation's not that great. Or someone will say something like, hey, I would love a rice cooker and some of these other utensils that you typically don't put in an Airbnb. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, good to know. I mean, I did put the rice cooker, but they had some interesting like pancake mixes and other like things that I was like, you know what? This is home. This is home stuff. So you take what you get, you improve where you should improve, and other stuff you're just like, you know what? I can't, or this
Yeah.
is outside of the value that people are paying for. So adding more would result in me making a loss versus a profit, depending on the suggestions.
What is your most favorite place that you've traveled to? And
I
some place that you would go back to?
I would say personally, as a mom, Cancun. I know it's basic, it's cheesy, but ever since
That's
I
okay. A
became
lot
a
of people
mother,
who listen to this podcast have never been to Cancun. So
yeah,
tell us
yeah.
about it.
Personally, for me as a mom, and like we said, I don't have a lot of help. I mean, we live in a most of the people we know who are family are not in Arkansas where we live. So as a mom, I really have loved Cancun because they have full-time help available. I'm married to an accountant. I myself am an accountant. Cancun has all inclusive, so no one is stressing each other about how much we spent. By the time we got on the flight, we spent everything. So we're not talking about money. You're actually just relaxing. I'm a lazy vacationer, so like as you said, life is busy. So when I do get time to recharge, I want to be able to just sleep, do nothing, relax, have good food, and socialize with whoever I'm traveling with. So Cancun by far has been the best for my full-on family experience, and I'll definitely go back. The other place I would say when I was single without my daughter that I really enjoyed was Maui. Um, the beauty, it's so beautifully, it's like you're in heaven. I'm like, if
Yeah.
this place is this beautiful, I can't imagine what the Garden of Eden might have looked like or what
Yes.
heaven will look like. It's
Oh,
heaven on earth. Yeah.
yeah. One of my best friends was like, okay, prepare for my 50th birthday, which is her 50th birthday is in 2 years. She's like,
Yeah.
we are gonna go to Hawaii and all this and all that. And I was like, oh, Hawaii, it's so far away. And she was like, this is coming from somebody who is going to Sydney in a month. What do you mean
Yeah,
Hawaii is so
exactly.
far
You're
away?
like, that's right there. It's right there.
And so, yes, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll be quiet. And it's two
Yeah.
years from now, so I'll prepare my mind
Yes,
for it.
you'll be prepared. And honestly, it's beautiful. Like, the only thing I don't like about Hawaii is how
Yeah.
expensive it is
It is
because it's
so,
an
and
island.
that's another
Yeah.
thing, right? Because we did
Yeah.
my dad's 70th birthday in Hawaii. We did it on the big island. The old
Yeah.
people island is what I think it is,
Yeah.
the big island.
It
But it
is.
was amazing because I got to go hiking and got to see the volcano. But I can tell you that all I was thinking about when I was looking at that volcano and I was seeing the lava was, oh my gosh, is this what hell is going to look like?
Yes. Truly.
Yeah, but
Yeah, we want everyone needs to make sure they get to heaven somehow.
yes, because
Yeah.
you've got the heaven part, the part
Yeah.
that looks like
Yeah.
heaven, then you've got the lava. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
we don't want to be in the lava part.
Yeah. For
So,
real.
talking about heaven, what are your thoughts about heaven?
I don't know. I don't think there are any thoughts about heaven than the place that we all want to go. I think
Yeah.
personally, obviously being a Christian, I believe in God and I believe in God for myself. I was obviously raised in a very strong Christian family,
Hmm.
but for me, heaven is the destination, and I think for me that's a lot of comfort. I think the older I've gotten, the more comfort I've found in knowing that we were never designed to be on this earth forever, and it's really a pass-through destination, and how we live our lives determines where we end up. And I know a lot of people, even some people who are listening to this, probably don't believe in heaven. And I encourage you to go and find God for yourselves, or if that's your choice not to, that's okay. But as someone who truly has come to know and understand God and who He is and the role that our portion here on earth is, I know it's temporary. And I think for me, the thought of heaven is blissful. Knowing God and knowing heaven has made even things like death become less of a scary thing. Initially, like when I was younger, death was frightening and very painful because you thought that it was more you were mourning the person going. But now I realize that the tears are for me. I'm the one who's going to miss that person. They are resting. They are waiting for the Father. They are waiting for that great day and to be reunited. And I think for me that's comforting to know that one day we will all be reunited, hopefully. And there is so much more to this life than this place called Earth and even the frivolous material things that are around us. Heaven is the ultimate destination, and it's exciting for me.
So, who are two people, dead or alive, that you would want to have dinner with and just learn from?
Two people, dead or alive, that I want
They
to
have
learn
to be
from.
women. So it cannot be Nelson Mandela. They have to be women.
That's a tough question because I feel like there's a lot of people that I'd love to learn from. I think I'll stick to the women that have impacted my life personally. I'd say in terms of two people, I'll choose my grandmother, my father's mother. So, interesting story with my family is my grandfather married two sisters, and my grandmother was the first sister to get married. And they actually lived together, both had kids, co-wived with this man, which was very common during back then. But somehow, and like as I was a child, I lived with my grandmother for the first maybe 7 years of my life, and she actually passed away. I was there the day she passed away. We were watching TV, Days of Our Lives, those days for those who
Days of Our
remember.
Lives made show when I was like 14.
Yeah. We used to watch it every day. I think it was at 6:30 or 6 on SABC TV. And she'd had a great day. My grandmother, by the time she died, couldn't walk. She was in a wheelchair or she would crawl because of arthritis. And she was sitting down watching TV. We're waiting for supper. And effectively, we're like, go wake up, supper's here. And she wouldn't wake up. And that's how she passed away.
Oh.
But I realized just in how she operated, there was not a lot of bitterness. Like most people would be bitter if like their sister came and married the same person. And even my second grandmother, who's her sister, was an amazing woman as well. But I don't, and I never got to meet my grandfather, but I don't know how they did it as women.
Yeah.
And both of them had 10 kids, and they lived on a remote farm in the middle of nowhere. And I know she probably had her own ambitions for her life, her own dreams. And a lot of how she lived her life involved just sacrificing everything that she was and what she wanted from life for her children, and yet never being bitter. Like not once did I ever hear my grandmother saying anything negative about her sister or their kids. And even like my dad on his birth certificate, his mother is actually his stepmom, basically his mom's youngest
Oh,
sister.
wow.
Somehow they kept the family united. Us being Adventists is actually as a result of those two sisters. Like our family,
Really?
my grandfather wasn't the one going to church, it was actually my grandmother. And I've heard so many amazing things about her, which I wish if I'd had her for a little bit longer, I would ask her. So definitely number one on my list, just on how she excelled as a Christian. She was a very faithful believer, and also
Yeah.
just being a wife to someone I don't necessarily think was the easiest person to be married to, even though yes, he was my grandfather. Um, the second is my mother's sister. She passed away 2 years ago, about 3 years ago, I'd say almost 3 years ago. And I'd love to have dinner with her. She played a very important in my life. She died as a single person. She never got married, never really wanted to get married. But a lot of what my aunt lived her life, she was very successful in her career. I would say she was probably one of my biggest inspirations for pursuing an accounting profession. It was really her, because she looked so sophisticated, young, single, doing her own thing. And at some point, her brother passed away, which is basically my uncle. He left two kids, both him and his wife passed away, and she raised them as her own. Um, Gave them 110%. I watched her, one woman from being the sophisticated aunt who would barely cook. She could barely cook when we stayed with her. Watched her suddenly become a mom, and even in her life, I watched Zimbabwe, the economy impact her job, impact a lot of who she was as a woman, like what you would have identified her as, her status, and her actually starting to pursue her own business, becoming very known, building relationships. She used to be an introvert, watched her become an extrovert, and just watched her even grow as a Christian, which I know like she was all along, but like I watched her faith grow and develop. And honestly, I feel like she went through a hard season in her life, health wise, even in her career, financially, but somehow always maintained a positive outlook to life and attitude to everything. And even then, never wanted for herself. Like most of her wealth, she gave it away. She was one of those people who just believed in giving and just constantly gave. And I look back at it now and I'm like, yeah, because at the end of the day, we never get to keep it anyway. So it makes sense to give it to others and to share. So would love to have dinner with her just to talk to her. But yes, there are other women out there who have inspired the world and shaped others in so many ways. But these are the two in my life that I would say I would love to have dinner again.
So let's move it to women in the Bible. Who are two women in the Bible that when you get to heaven, you want to have in your house that Jesus is preparing for
Yes, my
you and have
mention.
tea with?
Yeah. So for a long time, I never understood Esther and why people raved about Esther.
Yeah.
I think it was only this year. that I was like, man, I feel bad for all my like silent thoughts about Esther, because I was like,
Silent thoughts.
I was
Were
like,
you judgy?
I was judging her, and I'll tell you why. Firstly, Esther was like, the king was married. Let's think about this. This was a married man who gave up his wife for something very, in my opinion at the time, very petty. Yes, she was disrespectful, but it wasn't, to me, it wasn't that deep. Like, it
Mhm.
wasn't deep enough. And I'm like, and to me, Esther was pretty. We all know she was a beautiful woman. And I think that's what made her stand apart. And at the time, all I thought was, yeah, she went and spoke on behalf of her people, but everyone raves about Esther. Esther was such a great woman. But I think as I've evolved and gotten more mature in the Bible and looking at like life, nothing is new under the sun. History repeats itself. If
Nothing
we
is new
look
under
at,
the sun.
yeah, if we look at governments that persecute their people, or like economic difficulty, we come from a lot of, like, Africa has a lot of issues in the economy. But when I now think of an Esther, I'm like, a lot of countries could use an Esther, someone who's either married to a president or someone of influence who will speak up on behalf of an oppressed people or against things that are not being done appropriately. And I know it takes a lot of bravery. Like, if you were
Mhm.
to look around and look at women who would do something that courageous, it could have amounted to treason. If you think about it, it was
Yes.
basically treason. She could have been killed for saying that, especially if someone could choose a new wife over just a wife refusing to dance. This was the
Yes.
type of man she was married to. And I think in understanding marriage and understanding the world more, I think I've come to admire what Esther did. And I think that was extremely brave. And if we had more women who were brave enough to just approach their husbands who have influence or authority, to be able to say, hey, I think we need to think through things differently or take a different approach, and have that influence over their husbands and use it, the world would be a great place. And I
Yes.
think there are not enough Esthers out there. So Esther is the one. That's for sure.
Okay. And number two?
Number two is an easy one for me. Mary, the mother of Jesus.
Mm.
I know it sounds like, yes, there are probably women out there who have done a lot of brave things, like the Deborahs in the Bible. But for me, when I think of Mary, I think this Easter I was doing a lot of like just, watching videos, thinking through what it was like to be Mary, to be pregnant, and tell your parents that the man is not known, basically. But Joseph will claim my pregnancy. And she was young, like Mary was very, very young. And
Yes.
I think her life was sort of chosen for her before she could even choose her path for herself. And God chose a woman that young for a reason. And Mary was the chosen one. And it's kind of sad when I think about it, like just thinking about, I'm sure Mary had her own dreams like all of us, and aspirations and things she wanted for her life. And yes, I think she came to realize the power and the privilege of being the mother of Jesus. But I'm pretty sure in the season and in being faithful and growing close to Christ, there were times, and even just in her pregnancy, that she probably challenged who she was. And even like watching your son get killed and having your son for just 33 years. I mean, it's not, I don't know. I was like, I don't know what it's like to be a Mary. And I know there are certain churches that really revere her.
Mhm.
But to me, just as a woman, Mary, a woman like me, I would love to spend dinner with her and just find out more about Mary.
Tell us what you would tell yourself at 15, 25, and 30.
Interesting milestones. Uh, 15, I'd probably say work hard. Work hard, give it your all. I
Mhm.
think a lot of what we do in those between 15 and even 20, maybe 15 and 25, those are your most critical career or life-changing moments. And they truly define who you become. Like the amount of time you invest reading those boring books, the amount of time you invest just learning the world and seeing where you could go and where you could fit in the world, it's a lot easier done during that time than
Mhm.
it will be much later. So I'd say 15, if I had to go back, I'll just tell myself, work hard, but also realize that you can do anything. Like you can, as long as you're willing to put in the work, you can become whoever you want to become. But this is the time for you to just work hard. 25, I'd probably say it's not that deep. Work more, maybe spend more time working on yourself. I think
Yeah.
when you get to your 30s, you start to realize a lot of trauma, issues, things that you've gone through in your life that impact how you think, how you believe in yourself, that self doubt, um, impact how you perceive the world because of all this trauma maybe that's happened as a child. That I think your 20s would be a good time to address some of those issues, because if you're able to start believing in yourself and um, not letting the issues of the past define who you become, if you do
Yes.
that in your 20s, you will, like, the sky is your limit. You won't care about what people think or what people say, because you've done that self work now.
Yes.
Whereas most people do that in their 30s or 40s or even 50s, when they
Yeah.
start to realize all these issues are impacting me, and it's impacting who I can become because I'm impacted by my thoughts and
Yes.
fears. Yeah.
Yes.
30, I'll just say keep it going. Let's keep moving. The sky is the limit. To me, it feels, now that I'm in my 30s, I feel like my 20s, I set myself up for success in my 20s. And
Yeah.
now I'm just building. I'm continuing to build. And yeah, every day I get better. Every day, even in my own self work, I'm becoming closer to God. But I thank my 20s for that amount of time I invested, whether it was in my career or in my self work. And even then, I feel like I should have done more self work in my 20s than I am doing in my 30s. But I feel like 30s for me has just been a lot easier. I'm just building on the foundation that has been set before. I think 30-year-old self, I'll probably just tell her, invest in the people around you, in relationships. I don't think I did enough of that in my 20s, and even at 15. I wish I'd kept a lot of the relationships I had when I was younger, just because I think at the end of the day, we achieve all these things, but what truly
Yeah.
matters is the people around us. And 30s, I'd probably just say at 30, start to build or reconnect with everyone you need in your life, or those people that make you feel good about yourself, because those are the relationships that truly matter.
So, what does your time with God look like with a busy schedule?
I'd say all I have for myself is either before I wake up, so like between my sleep time has been really, I try and make sure first thing in the morning, start a day with the word of prayer. Life is hectic, but the one thing that has been life saving for my relationship with God has been podcasts and
Mm.
having a long drive. So my long
Mm-hmm.
drive to work is when I would lie to you and I say I wake up very early and I pray. I wish I did. My mom, I was telling my mom, I was like, I admire how she does that, because she had a very good routine. But I would
Yeah.
say for me, if I can't get a long prayer in the morning, I have 40 minutes in the morning where I can talk to God. Or if
Yes.
I'm too tired, sometimes it's just a good time to put in a good sermon, a good Christian podcast, listen to that. And I typically alternate between doing maybe the spiritual podcast in the morning on my way to work, and then on my way back from work, I'll do like a self-help or a book or something that I enjoy. But that's really my time spent with God. I'd say knowing God early, when the
Yeah.
Bible says train up a child, makes a big difference to
Yes.
being a Christian, just because you're constantly praying. Like, I could be in a
Yeah.
meeting and something is happening and you're just like, "Ugh, Lord, please help me." Or
Yes.
sometimes you complain. The things you probably say out loud, you just hold them in and you're like, Jesus, please take the wheel over here. So prayer is not just a moment. It's almost like
Yes.
it's like, for me
Constant
personally, it's something
communing
you're
with Him
constantly
throughout the
doing.
day.
Yeah.
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 What
So
are you
that's been
currently
amazing.
reading or listening to for audiobook?
So, in terms of career, one of the things I'm listening to is Carla Harris has this book called Expect to Win. It
Mm.
feels like, for me, it's been phenomenal just because it feels like you're talking to a big sister in corporate who is giving you advice. And some of it has been very revealing for me. So, just how you navigate relationships, how do you accelerate your career? What are some of the things you should be doing? And even like just being, when I moved to America, I
Mm-hmm.
never really realized I was Black. I mean, in Africa, everyone's
Right.
Black. Like, you never feel different. But moving here and trying to succeed in your career, you suddenly realize you're Black. You never really had your Blackness put in front of you. And I think sometimes hearing from people like her who have succeeded and navigated being different in the workplace has been super helpful. So I'm reading her. And then podcasts, I love the church in Adventist church in Orlando called Whole
Oh,
Life Church.
okay. I'll have to
So I
look it up.
attended that church for a long time when I lived in Orlando and I was still working for Advent Health,
Yeah.
and love their podcasts. I'm a different brand of Adventism. I'm more less conservative than maybe how the churches that I grew up in back home.
Yeah.
And that
I
church
feel
is
like we are a
truly,
new generation of
yeah,
Adventists, and it's okay to be a new generation of Adventists because we are Adventists, but we also have moved with the times, just like the Adventists of 1985 were not the
yeah.
same Adventists of 1894.
Yes, yes.
So, yeah,
Yeah. And honestly, if anyone asks me like what's your dream church, that is the church that just suits my personality. The way their sermons, even the way they do their praise and worship, everything about that church is something I personally love. So I love listening to their podcast. It's really amazing. It's a nice, the just even the worship, the message. I like their pastor, Pastor Ken. So that's my typically like my devotional on my way to work, though, listening to their podcast and a few other like Christian podcasts or books like Miles Monroe. I'm big on him. I feel like he's great at giving spiritual advice and also just leadership advice as well, in a way, like the way and the purpose that God has for each one of us. That's typically what I listen to.
this has been amazing.
Yeah.
I have one last lightning round where I just ask you random questions.
Random. Okay. I was dreading it. I thought you were gonna ask me in the beginning, then I was like, oh, she's not gonna ask. And I was like, yes.
Oh, they're coming. Okay, if you could be a flower, which flower would you be and why?
Good question. I'd probably say a cactus. And I know it's not a flower, but I mean they do flower. If you think about it, they do flower.
They do
And
flower.
it's not for any other reason but just resilience.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, I'm terrible at looking after plants, but I can never kill a cactus. It's one of those they get a lot of water and occasionally look pretty, but resilience for me, I think it's a plant we take for granted. And if you're in the desert and you need some water and you see a cactus, it's there to save you. So weird plant, but yeah, I'll choose that one.
Okay, your dream place to visit.
I wouldn't say place, but like dream trip would be to retrace the walk of Christ, really. So
Mm,
that's just a biblical. I would love to do one of those Bible tours where you go to different countries and you're sort of tracing the Bible or
yeah,
basically Christ's movements. And I've told myself I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. And it's either sometimes you either have the money saved and you have it, but you don't have the time, or you have
right.
the time and now you don't have the money.
Or
So
the world
I'm hoping,
events are preventing you
yes,
from doing
I'm
it.
going anywhere.
Yeah.
So
So I wanted to be where Jesus was. And
yeah,
I did Jordan and Israel.
yeah,
And during that trip, I like flew to Egypt because I was like, that would take care of the
yeah.
Egypt part. But it
Exactly.
wasn't really like a whole tracing. But then I got to get in tours where I could go to Nazareth and we could go to
Wow.
Bethlehem. And it was so amazing. And I got to be baptized in the Jordan River. It was like my most
That's a
amazing
dream.
trip. That
That's
was
amazing.
most amazing trip. So yes, someday you gotta do it. There's just
Yeah.
something about it that just
Mhm.
for me it drew me closer to God because
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so I've been to these places where
That's
Jesus'
it.
feet touched.
Yeah.
And just seeing, oh, this is where we think Peter's mother's house was, where she was healed from being sick. This is where we think this happened. It might not be at the exact same place, but
Yeah.
just being in that area, it was just so incredible for me.
Incredible. Yeah. That's what things like that reinforce just that there is a God, because
Yeah.
you can't make that up. You can't. So, yes, I'm inspired going to do that.
And then last question is, what is your favorite color?
It's constantly evolving. And I'll
Okay.
say this because for a long time when I was young, it was blue.
Mm-hmm.
It became gray until recently. And recently, I'll tell you, I just love colors now. Like I'm wanting to be less gray. I love the yellows and the
Yeah.
reds. Red is currently probably my current favorite color of choice because I feel like it's just so bold. But really loving more colors now in everything. But I've always been like a gray, blue, dullish girl.
I like that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
do. I'm very much into pastel colors right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love all the colors that are kind of, that soft pastel
Yes.
feel.
It's trending. So
Trending.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because growing up for the longest time, my favorite color was green. And
Yeah.
it could be any shade of green, but mostly
As long
dark
as it's
green.
green.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but even now, whenever I look outside or whenever we're walking outside or driving outside and I see green trees, I'm still in awe because I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, how is it so
Favorite color.
beautiful like this? Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Mhm. No, I appreciate it. Honestly, I feel like this has made me miss my podcasting days. So, driven me back to memory lane, but I really have enjoyed myself.
Well, hopefully, when you have a little more time, you'll get back to podcasting.
That's the goal. I need some more people to nudge me to be like, we miss you. Maybe I will. But yes, definitely one day it's on my bucket list to get back to it.